Welcome to the Crit House MyFIVE series, where we delve into the artistic journeys of photographers, exploring the 5 images that shaped their creative evolution and artistic vision. Today, on the Crit House, one of the great living street photographers, Michael Hintlian. His 5 images include work from Tony Ray Jones, Robert Frank, Gary Winogrand, Tom Wood, and Diane Arbus. So Michael is a Boston area photographer. His work has appeared in major U.S. dailies, international periodicals. He's been exhibited and collected. He has books. He has also served on the faculties of schools like the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, the New England School of Photography, the New School for Social Research, and the Parsons School of Design. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, I gave my little spiel about who you are. Who are you in the photographic world? How do you talk about yourself?
Wow. How do I talk about myself? I've been on a journey of a lot of decades. I started out working on the street. So I mean, you mentioned street photography.
Yeah.
I started out working on the street and instantly, recognized that for me, yeah, that was the coolest thing. And, many years later, it still is the coolest thing. It's probably the most difficult kind of photography to do because it's so random and so unexpected and unannounced, full of failure. It's just the most difficult thing to do with a camera, I think. My friend and teacher Bill Burke said, "It'll break your heart." I think Henry Wessel said it best that you're out there organizing chaos. You can't take a photograph 10 minutes ago or 10 minutes from now. You can only work with this present moment.
5 images, right? So I know you wrestled with this because I know, but what did you go through in making that decision about what the 5 images you were going to talk about? How did you get to what was your thought process?
Oh God, well, the thought process um, was how do I distill all of the amazing work that I've seen and that from the canon that that's had an influence on me, that's had some impact, and on various levels. Um, so there's work that was instantly knocking me out as a 20-year-old or 19-year-old fooling around with a camera. And I'm still looking at that work all these years later. And uh, so how do I include that along with newer work that is still reminds me of how cool this really is and how beautiful that this whole effort called photography is. I put together a folder of like 60 pictures that like, oh, these are all great. I want to talk about all these pictures, but I can't do it.
Nope.
So
Nope.
so at the end of it, it was like, um, I love all of the pictures I selected, and the 5 that I picked could be easily swapped out for other things. But I think it was important to start with the one picture that I gave you to begin with.
So let's go there. And that image is this one from Tony Ray
Yes,
Jones.
everybody needs to know who Tony Ray Jones is. English photographer who I don't think he made it to 30 years old. He passed away from, he got very sick and died.
No kidding, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you're very young. I saw this picture in an issue of Creative Camera. And the thing that I took away from this was the idea that he had so much going on in the frame. The frame was just full of subject stuff. your eye would wander around this frame and just find the most beautiful things going on. And so he opened this portal into this corner, or this seaside. This picture stood out um, as a key picture. And I still look at it, today, and it's breathtaking.
It is amazing. I'm just saying, so I hadn't seen this image previous to this, but just, sitting here, I mean, you've got four different relationships of different levels of intimacy. You've got the girl and the dog and the couple on the left-hand side, and then the mother and the child and the bassinet and her, the grandmother that's sitting there, and over the right-hand side, a mother and a child playing against the window, and then the couple off in the distance. Those are family units that are all depicted in their own moments here. And just edge to edge. It really is an amazing image. Very cool. Thank you for showing it. Thank you for introducing me. And then Robert Frank.
I hadn't discovered Robert Frank until I met Bill Burke, who almost the second thing he said to me was that go buy the Americans. Just and this is like 1974, I think, or 1973. I was a student at the museum school, and when I saw the Americans, I mean, that opened the gateway to Walker Evans, whose work I really didn't understand at all for a long time. But I saw how both those photographers, and I put Robert's picture here because I only had 5. So, but he worked there was an homage to Walker Evans in Robert's work, and I saw the connection pretty clearly with this picture. So there's probably 20 other pictures that I could put up from Robert Frank that would echo the same idea. But this very cool picture.
You've cheated a little bit with your fourth one with Gary Winogrand, because you've got both this one, and you couldn't choose between the two. Is that my understanding?
Well, I want to make a point, and I thought that this would be good. Come on, you gave other photographers little treats. I pay attention.
I called them on it.
I know you did. I know you're calling me on it, but I'm gonna call this 2 pictures from 1 photographer.
Yes.
So how's that?
That works? I'm fine.
Getting mushy. So all this is me seeing what this photographer was doing with groupings of people. So it's a very simple set of 3 people, 3 figures in the photograph. So if you go back and forth, you'll see that, here's the 3, and then you have these 3. And they're almost, I mean, the volumes of their size are almost the same. So it kind of taught me about that it would be okay to be further away and include more background and more landscape kinds of elements
to
work the frame. And I mean, I still dig this picture a lot. I mean, the expression this guy, these two dudes on the right are kind of like trying to impress, probably a higher level executive, some idea that they've got. And there's a story in there. I don't know what it is. It's mysterious, but it's this 60s thing, Mad Men. This is not a simple-minded picture by any means.
No.
There's interesting stuff going on here, but the contrast of the 2 with the 3, was a light that went on in my head.
I appreciate the view. And then we move to Tom Wood.
Yeah, so Tom Wood, more contemporary. Tom Wood is is a working photographer today. He did a body of work in the 80s and into the early 90s called All Zones Off Peak. This is somebody who worked in color more out of economic need than anything else. Color film, I guess, was he would get expired movie film and roll it himself, and he worked a lot from the bus. So Tom Wood does not have a driver's license and doesn't know how to drive.
Hmm.
So he found himself on a bus constantly and made this body of work from a bus. It's exceptionally difficult to do. Part of it is because you have the shorter time between perception, between what you see, and then the time you need to operate the machine, the camera, and all of which the bus is moving you past what you've just perceived.
Yeah, you can't wait for the moment. The moment is that only that second the bus passes by.
Right. So the whole thing comes down to taking out of the equation the whole thought process. So you're not looking at something, thinking about it, and then taking the picture. You're looking at something and taking the picture. So there's this reflex that happens. So you're actually you're using body intelligence rather than your mind to make the picture. There's something else that happens, because if you're going someplace on a bus or a train and you start working on the train, it kind of puts you into a mindset where your rhythm, like you're ready to kind of work as you step off that transportation. You're already in play, and the rest of the day kind of flows from that. You with me? So it's kind of a kickstart. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh. All right, we'll wrap it up with Diane Arbus, which goes in different directions from the feeling of the other images you have here. But
does. Yeah. And no less passionate about her work. And seeing it for the first time, was just knocked me out. And again, her use of the flash, her use of going into these kind of stuffy situations, and some situations that were just bizarre and uncomfortable, and making a picture, and coming away with this. I mean, in this picture, I mean, that woman looks like she was pasted there. And and those guys are like all, kind of, you want to believe that they're gods of the universe and the financial system, or whatever. But they were at an opening at some museum. I think it was the Met. She was there, I'm sure, hired to make public relations kinds of pictures, and of course made some very interesting pictures of her own. Her use of flash, and she talks about how when she uses a flash that she found that there was a real darkness that she could create in her pictures. It's a literal darkness, because the way she's exposed, only the things closer to the camera with a flash would necessarily be exposed correctly. Everything else goes to shadow, except for this picture. That to me was part of the revelation, that that pictures that you could go into an environment and come out with a photograph that was actually more than what was photographed.
Yeah, well, this is certainly the case. Michael Hintlian, I have to say, it's been a great having you on the program. I liked it because, again, I'll go back to being, I say this occasionally with some of the people who come on, I'm a little bit of a fanboy of Michael Hintlian. So it is good for me not only to be able to talk to you, but also to learn a little bit more about how you have been influenced by the canon of history of photography. Because I know you're a student of history, but it's been great to have you on the Crit House. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Thank you all for watching the Crit House.